Little pieces of relationship advice we get from here and there, social media, a friend. We kind of collect these hodgepodges of advice, and we somehow think that that will help heal our relationship. Where a lot of times we're like looking for that magic pill or this kind of bullet or this like magic sauce, secret ingredient that we're missing out on. That once we get, our relationship will finally be how we know it should be. But if you hear me say that, you probably are also kind of hearing, oh, that actually sounds pretty ridiculous because it is ridiculous. You know, relationship is something that's so foundational to our life. And I'll share some of the science behind that, how actually relationship is an underlying system in our brain and body that feeds how we experience basically everything else. So we'll get in a little bit to the science of that. But for now, I just want you to kind of get present with me here and commit to really learning this. So if you give me your time here, just this brief little window, you're going to walk away with a much clearer understanding of how to have a happy, healthy, and securely attached relationship. So that's a really big deal, and that can dramatically change your life. But it does require some intentional focus here. So not the little hodgepodge thing, a little piece of advice here and there, here and there. No, we want to get focused because this is really important. And in fact, it might be the most important thing in our lives. You know, they've done these studies where they look at people in the last moments of their life on the deathbed. And what they see is that one of the main things people think about is, wow, I wish the people in my life could feel that I love them more. Or it's really preoccupation with, wow, I wonder how I was in my relationships. So we think about relationships in the final moment of our life. We don't think about the project we're working on. We don't think about financial this and that. So that tells us a lot. And actually in my book, I talk about deathbed perspective because there's a clarity that comes in the final moments of life. And so we can have that now, that kind of clarity. And so that when we get to the final moments of our life, we're not left with these terrible feelings. We can feel good about it. We can feel good that we brought our hearts, we brought ourselves into relationship fully, and that everybody knew that they were loved and it functioned well. Because a lot of times love isn't actually enough. So instead of just getting this hodgepodge of relationship advice, a lot of generic advice, everybody seems to have relationship advice, real estate influencers, everybody, and it's valid, it's good. And that's not really enough. You need actually a map for your partner. You need a system or systems to get intentional here about your relationship and actually change the relationship. If you're like 1 foot in, you're half-assing it, it's not going to shift. So we got to, I'm really trying to drive this home. We really need to be very intentional about this, and get intentional, and then we can form new patterns. We use the map, we can form new patterns, and then the relationship shifts. I've seen it many, many times. I've done it myself. I've been in so many terrible relationship dynamics. And I started even my marriage with some of those, my stuff playing out in the marriage. And it's been healed. We have a happy, healthy marriage now for years. And my old self, you know, I used to be a ex-hardcore drug addict. I used to be a hardcore drug addict. And I also had really intense ADHD and a bunch of other problems. I used to get arrested a lot when I was a teenager. And so needless to say, I'm just saying that because my relationships were pretty fraught with all kinds of issues. And it drove me nuts. And it actually drove me like quite nuts. Yeah. And so I had to learn how to have a healthy relationship the hard way. I spent years doing it. And so you can benefit from that because now I'm able to help a lot of other people. And it's really just not me, of course, it's the system that is worked and it's informed by science. You know, that's the thing. There's a science and an art of relationship. I am kind of perplexed as to why the science isn't more mainstream. There's a lot of really interesting, good science behind relationship or how to do it, how to have a healthy relationship. Some people can just naturally do it, but that's more of the rarity. But anyway, so my philosophy is we know the science. You know, there's a limited amount of studies, there's a little limited amount of science out there to understand. And so we know that's the foundation. And then off of that, we can build the art. You know, there's even science talking about some of the art form of being in a relationship, which is being responsive. And we're going to talk more about that. It feels like love should be enough, doesn't it? It really feels like that. Well, I love them. They love me. We'll figure it out. You probably have a lot of love for your partner. Your partner probably has a lot of love for you, but you're still stuck in these same cycles and you're likely very tired of it. I don't know if you've had this experience. A lot of people do of, oh my God, is this it? Oh my gosh, is this just how it's going to be? Here we are again. Oh, and you have that sinking in your stomach or that pressure here, that constriction, that, oh gosh, here we are again. You know, it's really painful. But if you've been in this relationship cycle enough, the pain starts to move to exhaustion, to collapse, to kind of a nervous system state of collapse. And so you're probably pretty tired of it, like the same cycles again and again. And that can be remedied just by, again, having the right map, understanding that there's a collective organism that forms. You have a nervous system, your partner has a nervous system. And when those nervous systems come together, there's a new organism that forms. And this has actually been studied by science. There's science on synchrony, studying this state we get into in relationships where there's a kind of a oneness experience where we're not in our analytical brain, but we're in this oneness state. So there's usually no shortage of love. Like you probably really love your partner probably really loves you. That's there, and that's important to feed, to grow back. And I talk a lot about that, how to do that. That's really important. And it's usually not enough. And when we have these cycles so many times again and again, what ends up happening is we just kind of collapse around it. It's like the pain is there, a feeling like you're not loved, you're not met, or you're dismissed. That's there. That's very real, and we feel that. But after you've experienced that so much, we start to enter into kind of a more dangerous territory for our nervous system and attachment system, which is just collapsing around it, giving up around it. And we want to avoid that, really. To have a healthy relationship, especially to heal your relationship, you need to put both feet in. You can't have one foot out, one foot in. Often people have this, they feel like they're having the same fight, or they keep coming in these cycles of fighting. It's different topics, but it's actually usually the same nervous system feeling underneath. And that really is important to know, because your body is telling you that there's an underlying pattern here, an underlying dynamic that you can actually address and move through. So if you keep having the same feelings in fights again and again, that's more of a trailhead. That's an entry point into doing deeper work. That's not something to be overly concerned about. But usually stuckness, freeze, when we keep having repeated patterns, there's like a chronicness to it, or it's very repetitive in your life, that's a good sign that there's something there that actually can be supported and healed, and that can move through. So that's really good news. And maybe you just have this longing for something more significant, for something deeper. We find meaning not just through our jobs, but also through connection. That's the main thing. When you enter that space, this attachment space that we'll talk more about, it's dosing your nervous system with all these good neurotransmitters, all these good feelings that actually help you feel more fulfilled, more satisfied. And out of that, you find meaning, a fullness to life. And that longing that you might be having for relationship, really for depth of connection, is a wonderful inroad into your attachment system. That's your attachment system, your relationship system, showing up in real time, trying to guide you into a healthy relationship. So that longing is good. A lot of people learn they need to shut that down. No, we want to build that longing up. We want to build it into a blaze, a fire, really a beautiful thing that can actually guide your connection. Because those longings inside you are usually coming from somewhere that's very intelligent. They know what you need. We want to find those and build those. It really is possible to have a stable, peaceful baseline at your home. It can be a nourishing environment. That's how we're hardwired. Actually, our brains and bodies are expecting that. And when we don't get those, that can be so unsettling. You can feel chosen and not managed, not micromanaged. That's a big, big problem. A lot of people have. And you can have repair that actually lands after conflict. Like when my wife and I get in a fight, it's normal to get in a fight, everyone. If you don't get in fights, there's probably something much deeper going on that really needs to be addressed. Having fights is normal, but fights don't need to last so long, and they don't need to be so intense. And then there can be repair, and you feel closer. Repair can actually help our relationships feel safer because we're getting to know our partner more. So like I was just about to say, my wife and I, when we get in a fight, we have a knowing inside that, oh, okay, we'll work this out. This is okay. We'll work this out. Neither of us is going anywhere. This is going to be okay. We're going to work this out. We use the map, we use the system, and we guide ourselves through it without much effort really at all. So that's very possible to have repair that lands, that's significant. You can feel close. You can actually let in closeness. You can actually be in these states of oneness, of synchrony with each other, which is actually something that's scientifically studied. They've done neuroimaging, and they've seen brains when they're in those connected states. How cool is that? And you can have this trust that I'm talking about, that hard conversations will not become emotional emergencies. They will repair. I've seen a lot of couples later in life, like in their 70s, and all of them have been had to go through a grief process around all the years they lost, just caught up in this bullshit, caught up in this hellish landscape of turmoil. And they almost all say this at some point, that I wish I had done this so much earlier. It can be so simple. wow, this wasn't that hard. I just really needed to understand, have this map for my partner, understand their psychology, and they understand mine, and we work together. We do this as a team, and things are so much smoother. And oh my gosh, we lost 40 years to this turmoil that we didn't need to happen. That's a big deal. So you don't want that to be you. And you also don't want like kind of these ways that we get hardened in relationship where we kind of like maybe start complaining or you get very disenfranchised, kind of cynical about everything. That's usually a result of not having enough closeness. Like kind of all these, like a lot of these edgy ways we are in kind of our personality, the way we behave. There's like bitterness that kind of close down. That's usually a result of not having healing relationships, not having deep connection, the way we crust. You know, you can either age like this, where you're kind of collapsing in, or you can age like this, where you're opening up. And I think you want to age like this, right? And a lot of how we do that is by creating healthy relationships. So you don't feel like you're having to guard yourself all the time. You don't have to be defensive all the time, or maybe be even on the attack sometimes. You can actually just be open and understand that this connection is going to be there for you, and it's really beautiful, and you have a safe place, a nourishing place to exist. What a difference that makes. So you just don't want this to become your personality. How many healthy relationships do you actually know? You know, I did a poll recently. I have an Instagram following of over 100,000 people, so I thought I'd leverage that. Did this poll and asked people up close and personal, how many relationships that you know of are actually healthy? And the vast majority of people said 1 to 5. And my suspicion is it's just like maybe 2 or 3 for most people. And then I had just kind of ranges in the questionnaire. But that's a pretty sad state of the world, where something that can be so innate, that's connected to our nature, just being in relationship. We're tribal beings. We evolved, or we were created to be in connection, to be in community. And so it's very innate. When we can move through our trauma, we're not stuck in these patterns. Being in connection is kind of a birthright for you, healthy connection. So it's a pretty sad state of the world when very few relationships are healthy. I knew this because I was in so many tumultuous relationships, and I would look around and I would like try to find healthy relationships, and I couldn't find them. So I had to do all these trainings, became a psychotherapist, did all these trainings in it. Now I even teach somatic attachment work, but I had to learn all this stuff just to try to like figure out, what does healthy relationship even really look like? You know, people write these books here and there, but those usually are so convoluted, and they don't give you a clear system, a clear map, you know, and a lot of times they are kind of outdated. You know, they don't bring in the newest research and stuff. So it's just not the best thing. But my point is, what a sad state of the world when very few people you know are actually in a healthy relationship, up close and personal. From the distance, you're just looking on social media, of course, it looks like a lot more people have healthy relationships, but people just present that front. But actually, when you get up close and you look under the hood, you get to know the couple in significant ways. Usually, you see like, oh wow, this is some pretty big issues they have here. A lot of relationships have that, and how to have a happy, healthy relationship is actually like a set of skills that you can train yourself to do. It doesn't need to be a mystery. And I've done this with people, really shut down, avoidant men that have taken my course, and they're able to be emotionally available again. That's a pretty big deal, you know, for in those relationships. It totally changes everybody's qualities of life. So what does a map for your partner actually look like? This is just some of it, where you want to have a map for your partner's triggers, their wounds. We each just have like 2 or 3 core wounds, even 1 core wound, like a wound underneath all wounds where we feel unlovable. I teach that I go through that in depth in my relationship course, so I encourage you to check that out. But we need a protection map, understanding how our system protects itself, how our partner's system protects itself. Does your partner shut down to protect himself? And then maybe you can see past the protection, see to the wound. That's very helpful, and that's a very trainable skill you can develop. And then we also want to map for repair, to just get really good at repair. Might as well be very intentional and get really good at repair. There's a free repair sheet in a PDF download that you can check out in the description down below. So I highly encourage you to do that, and then save it as the background of your phone so you can reference it really easily. I kind of explain how to use it in the video that's there. When you click on that, it should autoplay. So without a map, we're just basically guessing in the dark. So I just taught this 4-day live intensive training to a group of over 50 therapists. One of the big takeaways from that group, what so many of the therapists, so many of the people left like with the aha, you know, oh wow, that's so interesting. The first day was understanding how wounds, how hurt in relationship actually gets stored in us, gets imprinted in us. And because hurt happens in relationship, when our attachment circuitry is involved, it gets stored there in those circuits. So when you're in connection with someone, there's this whole interpersonal neurobiology. There's a specific biology, specific neural circuits that get activated when you're in connection. And then when that connection is disrupted, or when there's hurt, maybe betrayal, dismissal, any of the things, that can get stored there in that attachment system. And then it's not until that attachment system wakes back up, or the interpersonal neurobiology wakes back up because you're in close connection again, that you experience those wounds. So a lot of times we think it's our partner, but it's actually not our partner. It's our wounds being projected in a relationship, but we just experience them only in the relationship because that's the only time our attachment system is activated or fully activated. So if you're fine by yourself, but then get triggered in a relationship, it's likely because your wounds, the ways you've been hurt, happened when your attachment system was online. So the wounds actually got stored there. And then closeness or intimacy will re-trigger those wounds. And then we think it's our partner, but it's not our partner most of the time. It's actually our hurt just being activated because our attachment system is awake now. What that's a result of is a protective mechanism in our brain and body that says, I need to be alert to when I'm going to be hurt. And so closeness activates this, the past wounds, and part of the past wounds are really just memories. And so your body starts going, okay, I need to protect myself here. This happens at an unconscious level. Attachment system's activated. With the attachment system activating or waking up comes the past hurt. And then that past hurt is going to have us try to be protective of ourselves, because our body's trying to guard us, make sure we're not hurt again. And then, you can get reactive. And the kind of messed up part of this is that those wounds will kind of self-create because we have a hurt there and we're so hyper-vigilant about it. We're going to start finding things that are upsetting. If you look for it, you usually can find stuff that's pretty upsetting. There's it's really healing to deeply take in everything's okay. If you can believe it, everything's okay. Everything's okay. I need to feel as if everything's okay. That's a very early state. And when you're a little baby and mom's rocking you, everything's okay, or it should be okay, right? Your whole world at that point. Nowadays, we're so connected to things we see. Never is everything okay. But there's a lot of utility in trying to let that experience in. But it's almost never okay. Like when is everything okay, right? But if we focus on it, we focus on how things aren't okay in the relationship, we feed that too much, our nervous system will react to it and it'll start finding more things like that. So it builds, it spirals. So there's even like in trauma physiology, understanding trauma, like if somebody was hit by a car, they were in a car accident from their front right, car came in and hit them. They're either in the future, they're either going to be hyper attuned to that direction, right? They're going to be constantly monitoring that, or they're going to be frozen there and then not monitoring that at all. And they're going to be more aware of everything else. And then they keep getting hit here. Same thing happens in relationship, where we can stay locked in guarding on a specific pattern. And then we miss everything else. We're not paying attention to everything else, or we're just frozen there, and then we keep getting hit again and again. A lot of times people, they're in a traumatic car accident, get in the same accident multiple times because of this. Same thing can be in your relationship. Can repeat this dynamic because there's freeze, because there's nervous system dysregulation in your nervous system, but also the collective nervous system of you and your partner. A piece to know here is that our patterns, the way that we get kind of triggered, the way that we get hurt, and then we get reactive, we behave awfully, or we just behave kind of in ways we wish we aren't behaving in those ways, as shameful kind of loops. Oh no, I really did that. I raised my voice, I yelled, whatever it is. Oh, I wish I didn't. I love my partner so much. Why did I just yell at them, or I'm expecting too much, or these spirals we get into. A lot of them started out as adaptive. So there's the different attachment styles. So famous study by Mary Ainsworth that's been repeated a bunch of times. She's kind of the mother of attachment theory. This study created attachment theory, basically. Her work with Bowlby, and of course you don't need to know that, but what they did was they discovered these attachment styles through this simple experiment where mother was with a stranger and young child, and the mother would leave the room and they would observe the baby's reaction, and the mother would come back and they'd observe the baby's reaction. So you can see your attachment style on transitions when you leave and when you come back. If you want to know how somebody actually feels about you, look at their body language the first couple seconds they recognize you. When you walk in a room and they weren't expecting you and they see you, their body language will tell you how they're actually feeling about you. It can change, but you can't fake it. It's just the first few milliseconds you can see how somebody actually feels about you before we put the mask on. So Transitions, usually conflict in relationship happens in transitions as well. When you're anticipating somebody leaving, or when somebody does leave, or when they come back, right? Those transitions really trigger our attachment system. So it wakes our attachment system up. So they observed this, and they saw that babies had different, or young children had these different reactions, where some babies would be kind of sad, mom left, right? And then when mom came back, they would let mom hold them. They'd feel much better, right? Secure attachment. That's secure attachment. Some babies, when mom left, they would cry and they would cry and they would cry and they would cry. They'd be stuck on crying, crying, crying. Mom comes back. They'd let mom hold her, but they'd still cry, cry, cry. They wouldn't let the soothing in. Does that sound familiar? That's the what pop psychology calls anxious attachment, but really it's ambivalent attachment, ambivalent or preoccupied attachment, because all in the literature. Anxious attachment, it's anxious ambivalent, and there's also anxious avoidant attachment, which is the next style. So anxious is just the characteristic of both attachment styles. So it's not just anxious attachment. Anyway, those babies, when mom came back, they'd stay stuck crying, 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 and then some of them they'd let mom hold them, and then some of them would even punch mom, like "F you for leaving." Does that sound familiar? Where we have punishing behaviors. We try to correct our partners with punishing. You don't want that kind of relationship, right? And it doesn't actually work. Punishing without explanation especially does not work. So it's just a reactive kind of thing that a lot of us end up doing. It's one of those protective mechanisms that, wish I hadn't done. And then the next attachment style was the avoidance. So they would just be like playing with their truck, mom would leave, they'd be playing with their truck, mom would come back, they'd be playing with their truck. They shut down their attachment system. And they learn to do that very early in life. There's even some kind of studies that look at even infants, like babies, before they can speak, already going into what we call autoregulation, or these kind of place of checking out, shutting down the attachment system. So it's very early, and it's the physiology. It's not someone trying to dismiss you or trying to shut down their attachment system. It's just their body's automatically doing it, their body and brain. And these can change. These are very adaptive styles. They seem to change all the time. I've changed them. I've been through pretty much all of them. If your mother or caregiver was not there emotionally, and you're there emotionally, and your attachment system is active, that's going to be so painful all the time to try to be reaching out for connection, and then they're not there. And so it's actually better for you at the time to keep your attachment system shut down, so you avoid all this pain, because it's no small thing. Again, attachment is tied to survival. So feeling your attachment system active, trying to connect with someone, and then they're not reactive, they're just a wall, that's scary, and it's really alarming to the brain and body. It can cause us to fragment. So it's really important that we see these attachment styles for what they are, which are adaptations, which they're ways that we protected ourselves. And then the last attachment style is the disorganized attachment style. And disorganized happens when our fight or flight system, our self-protective system, gets over-associated with our attachment system. So attachment system on one hand, fight or flight system on the other hand. And when we're in situations where our caregiver is also hurting us, or love comes at a cost, we learn we have to protect ourselves from love. So love can become the trigger. And then when you try to attach, like this is the attachment, gets laid down, fight, flight here. When you try to attach, or when you try to connect again, you're reaching for this attachment system, but this fight or flight comes up because it's on top. So we have really good ways of uncoupling those that works very well. Relationships are mutually responsive. So there's this whole myth that what other people do shouldn't affect you. You should be this autonomous, perfect person. But the actual science is now clear that it doesn't work that way. We're actually more of a relational organism. And since we're tribal, our body evolves to track those around us. So we feel the emotional state, we feel the internal world of others. Even if you're not consciously aware of it, you're feeling it, you're tracking it on some level. And that needed to happen because way back in the day, if Joe Schmo over there saw a tiger and their system got really activated, we needed to know that second so we could also be prepared, right? So that's one aspect of it. Another reason why we're this way is because again, this attachment system needed to activate, needed to be there in order for us to survive. So we needed to know the internal landscape of our caregivers. We needed to be connected in order to survive. And so we developed this circuitry, this whole interpersonal neurobiology again. And it works both ways. So if somebody is dysregulated, you'll feel it. If your partner's dysregulated, you'll feel it. You can't just not feel it. Like it's there somewhere. You can try to shut it down. You can distract yourself. But it's there in your unconscious. It's there in the field. And if your partner is regulated, you can also feel that. So it goes both ways, where we're this shared kind of relational space. So this whole old myth of you do you, I do me, couples counseling used to be that way. Like you go do you, I do me, and we come back, and then we're whole, right? That's been dispelled. That's no longer how anybody worth their kind of salt is doing couples counseling anymore. So we're dyadic systems. We're meant to be in close relationships. So your nervous systems are constantly influencing each other on all kinds of levels, unconscious levels. A lot of the science in relationships shows that there's a very real physiological, like biological, physiological synchrony that can be measured. So isn't that cool that this actually, when you feel close to someone and you feel you're in tune with them, therapists know this place very well, where you're with your clients emotionally, you're there, you're not in your analytical part of your brain, you're not up there thinking logically, rationally, you're over in this kind of being with experience. And through that being with, we can synchronize with people. We can synchronize with our partner. And that's real intimacy. That can be learned. And that's also measured. How cool is that they're able to measure that now in different ways? Responsiveness is actually more important than what we've thought of as compatibility, like somebody that has the same interests, similar hobbies, even the same values. Responsiveness is more important. So responsiveness is your ability to validate, but to be responsive. So someone's there talking to you, they're sharing to you, you can feel it in yourself, you're there with them, you might even ask questions about it. It's that experience of feeling felt. Wouldn't you like that, to feel felt more often, to feel known? It's such a important part of human existence. It's such an important thing that gives our lives meaning here. So it's nourishment. It's actually like food. It's not just like a luxury. It's food. We need it. Small little moments repeated matter more than the big gestures. So science actually shows that. Repair attempts will shape long-term relationship outcomes. So repair, it's the process of building a healthy relationship. A lot can be rupture and repair. Right? That's kind of the basis of it. We need to get really good at repairing after there's a rupture, meaning some kind of relationship break. You're in this organism of a relationship, you're there together, and then something happens, you get in a fight, and then it feels like a rupture. The relationship breaks apart. So learning to come back together is a really important skill. You can go much further than that, but the science says that that's really, really important. And science also validates a lot of what we know secure attachment couples already do. Maybe some of you are familiar with this activation loop. I call it the activation loop from hell because it's so hellish. You can feel so awful inside. I know this place very well, and I'm very grateful. It's been years since I've been here. But we get triggered, we go to wound, then we mobilize a protective response. That protective response often gets misread, and then escalation happens. People don't see the wound, escalation happens, they just see you being reactive, and then there can be failed attempts at repair, and then trigger, and the cycle continues. I wonder if you can relate to this pattern of one person pursuing and then the other one retreating. So usually there's different needs. One person wants to regulate through connection, and one person tries to regulate by being alone. Right? Usually the person that tries to regulate by being alone is trying to shut down their attachment system. They have that avoidant attachment I was talking about. And so they handle stress by running away, or by just deactivating their attachment system. Sometimes that can look like dismissing you. Sometimes that can look like even putting you down. But that's them trying to deactivate this whole relational system. And then the other person actually knows a little better. They know, regulation or relationship can be regulating. So they're seeking regulation, but sometimes it's a bit excessive. And so if you know to regulate through relationship, you know to feel better when you're in a relationship, but you see your partner moving away, you might chase after them, right? But it just is a trap because then they see you coming at them with relationship, and then they need to back away more. They need to go try to deactivate more. So their strategy intensifies to maybe dissociate, maybe even go in the other room, say something hurtful. They do all these things to try to get away, shut it down, shut the connection down because it's scary for them. And you have to understand that for the people that are retreating, it's actually like very physically scary for them. It's not like something that they're choosing to do. It's in order for them to come back out, they would likely have to feel all the pain that made them close up originally. So neglect is very painful. And when they are in connection again, they can usually let some of it in. Maybe there's some connection, but there's usually a point where they go, now my attachment system's getting too activated. You're bumping into their wounds. So you really need to know how to handle those wounds. And, okay, I'm bumping into the wound. Oh, shoot. Okay. Unconsciously, there's probably all these feelings around being rejected, not being good enough because they were neglected. So their body has interpreted that to mean all kinds of things, but basically it's just hurt. It's hurt imprinted in their attachment system. So when that attachment system wakes up, that hurt can start coming out. So they're doing everything they can to try to deactivate it, to get away from the feeling. Sometimes they can even think, you're doing this to me, right? That's not the case. You're not doing it to them. But the relationship is. You're making me feel these ways. You're making me feel this sense inside. No. And then the pursuer, the person that's stuck in seeking, needs to learn how to practice containment. So a lot of self-holding. and then also how to take in connection when it's there, like actually let it in. Remember those ambivalently attached babies that are stuck on seeking connection? That gets played out as an adult as well. And so we need to be able to let the good in instead of just being stuck on trying to seek it. Because the fear is if you stop seeking, it's not going to be there. You're going to miss it, but you won't. So it's actually much better to slow down, have a container. Okay, I'm here, and then take in the connection. So here's a lot of the science behind why we do what we do. So we use attachment theory, and attachment theory is basically, or working with attachment is basically synchronization. So you get into this synchronized state, and you help bad feelings go away, you help downregulate negative feelings, or you help increase positive feelings. That's the basis of attachment. That's what healthy attachment looks like. And then there's a lot of research we draw on that looks at couple satisfaction and kind of overall happiness. So they've actually studied couples. There's not a ton of research there, but there is some. And so we use the research on happiness. That's really important. And then there's also this science behind this bid responsiveness cycle. So a bid for connection, you do something like kind of in a more negative way, like a complaining is actually a bid for connection. Like it's an attempt to connect, like join. Hey, we're together over here. I'm complaining about this. Or, hey, are you going to soothe me? I'm complaining about something. Something's wrong. Are you going to soothe me? Right? That's a bid for connection. Not the best one, not the healthiest one. Healthy bid for connection can be appropriate touch, or saying a positive affirmation, this invitation into connection, right? So bids for connection are these ways that we're trying to get connection. They show up all the time, everyday life. You're probably doing it without even knowing it. And so when we bid and then there's responsiveness to that, it creates a secure dynamic that, oh, I'm here, I'm felt, I'm known, I'm understood, I'm safe. Really important science behind that. And then there's also science on this synchrony and co-regulation, that your partner and your physiology actually synchronize, and that can be co-regulating, and that's been studied. And then there's also all this science on understanding the nervous system that we draw on. So there's polyvagal theory, which is a really big one, but a lot of other science, just understanding how threat response works in the brain, how the brain will prioritize threat response, fight or flight, over social engagement, because it thinks threat is like if there's a tiger, what's more important is fight or flight. It's not important to, oh, hi, how are you? You know, that type of thing, like emotional depth isn't called for in that moment when there's threat. But we're in such chronic threat as a culture all the time. We feel it. We're seeing stuff on social media. You know, a lot of the algorithms do fear mongering. They try to trigger your threat system. So people are constantly in this threat response, and that can really kind of F up your relationship. If that's stuck on, that's chronic. So learning to turn those things off and turn those things off together, the stress response off together, is a really big deal. And then there's more science, but this is the basis of it. And then there's the dose repetition kind of science that looks at kind of the bid and then responsiveness to the bid, but then that being repeated is really helpful. And then the art of this work is really learning how to be present. It's operating outside of that analytical brain, so present with emotions, present with experience in the here and now. And it looks like validating with a very engaged response. Looks like giving care signals. I'm here with you. You matter to me. Verbally, yes, but also those other ways that we do it body to body, unconsciously. And then this attuned moment to moment tracking, knowing each other, knowing what's going on with them. This is very possible. This is how this is how we're designed to be. So we're not fighting our physiology. We're learning to return to the way that our body evolved, or that was designed. So it's less of a struggle and more of a returning home kind of experience. And then also letting our tone, our pace, our face, our body congruence all just kind of be there is a big part of this kind of art of having healthy relationships. And then knowing when to slow down, when to clarify. And then the less talked about kind of aspect is like delivering truth in a way that's receivable, that's not going to hurt someone. And then really a good art is when you deeply see someone, you see into their essence and you can reflect that. That creates attachment on a much deeper level, a knowingness of, I see you, you're so this way. I see, wow, your essence, you feel like this to me. Even like you can ask yourself, what does my partner's energy feel like to me? Okay, try to get to know their essential self, or some people call core self. Try to get to know what is that uniqueness about them at their core. And then how to repair ruptures without getting defensive can also be a bit of an art. When there's intense conflict, it's important to name your state first. That's the I statements, I feel, XYZ. Interesting research done about I statements. It's actually more effective to use we statements. So instead of saying, I'm so overwhelmed, it's much more effective to say, oh, we're having a lot of struggles today. When you frame it as we, it changes the dynamic from self-focused, which can exaggerate, which can make your conflicts worse because you're not connected. But if you switch to that connected language, the we language, it's actually been studied to be much more effective, have much better outcomes. But when there is high conflict, it's important to have some kind of differentiation. So if you're in a fight, using the I statement still works. It's still good. A little preferable to do we if you're able, but sometimes to repair, people really need the I. They need clarity. They need, oh, that's your experience. This is mine. Sometimes those boundaries get blurred for people. And so you want to lead with the I feel, this is my state. So you own that. And then you can move to kind of we language when it's in conflict. So you want to start with, so if you do story first, what you think is happening, what your mind is making up, it just escalates the tension. It doesn't really help repair anything. It's not advantageous for you. I wouldn't recommend doing that. And blame usually starts. But when you state your state first, regulation comes, and then resolution also follows. So just a quick 90-second repair reset is just to name your state, label your emotion, notice your body, orient your body, feel it. Okay, this is me. I'm here. I'm having this experience. Then you set your intention. So this would be the shared intention part of we want to connect again. So that's a really powerful one, that I'm feeling this, and I want to connect again. I'm feeling tension, constriction in my solar plexus and my stomach, but I want to feel connected with you. That's more important to me than being right. That's a very easy way to start the repair. And then you can make a request and acknowledge the repair. So what changes with practice is noticing patterns clearly. So the first kind of thing is you'll start noticing your patterns clearly. Just doing that, just the awareness of it, isn't necessarily healing, but it's on the way. And when you can witness your patterns, it gives you space from them, so you're not going to be hijacked by them as much. Those threat responses aren't going to come out so strongly. You're not going to fight when you wish you weren't. And then you can map out, the emotions. It just means less hijacking when you have it all mapped out. But it also invites self-compassion. It's a self-compassion practice to just notice. And then you keep catching yourself earlier and earlier, and you keep repairing much faster when you do that, when you catch yourself earlier. And then those new patterns eventually become defaults. So you catch yourself, you reorient what you're doing, you see into your partner's system, you see what they're needing, you give them what they're needing, they give you what you're needing. New pattern forms of we as the couple, we're doing this, and that new pattern eventually becomes the default. And then there's your way out. And then under intense stress, really high conflict, you'll want to reuse some of these skills that I teach in the full course here as well. But the repair checklist will also do. So it's a good thing if you don't want to do if you don't want to take it seriously. I highly encourage you to take it seriously. Do it. Get your relationship in order. You will not regret it. If you're very intentional with it, it'll be amazing. In my opinion and lived experience, it's really a no-brainer to do relationship work. The attachment system, relationship system, is a core system in your brain that influences pretty much how you perceive pretty much everything else. It's even a survival system. And so if your attachment system is dysregulated, or your nervous system is dysregulated from your attachment system, like meaning you have past hurt in relationship that's causing you to get triggered, causing your relationship to have problems, it's going to be life-changing to like really life-changing in a lot of different ways to finally have a securely attached relationship again. This is the case for me. I would not be able to do everything I've done, write a book. I have done all these courses, teach therapists, online presence, see a bunch of people every week in my private practice, and do so much. But if I was still operating with my insecure attachment styles, still in threat response, none of this would not be possible. So relationship provides stability for your life. It enhances your life dramatically. That's how we're wired as humans to have it. So it's a core system in your brain that can absolutely change your life when you help it heal. And then a big one that I don't want for you is to have the grief of not having done this work until you're much older. So you can do it now, or you probably will end up doing it much later anyway, when things maybe get worse or they're just stagnant so much that it's intolerable. And so if you wait, like a lot of the couples I've seen, until you're 70 to do it, you're going to have a lot of grief about not having done it sooner, because it can be pretty simple to actually do the work. What's amazing about attachment work, relationship work, is that it can be surprisingly simple, but it can bring out big feelings, but it's actually like profound but simple. I love that. That's the way to go. If you find something that's simple and profound, you're onto something. And so you won't have to have the grief. You won't have to live in these exhausting cycles. Is this really it? Is this what I'm meant for? Divorces and breakups are also quite expensive and traumatizing, right? But there's a financial aspect to it that people usually will pay anything to not have a divorce, because yeah, financially, it's just not a good move. That's an incentive for a lot of people to actually stay married, is like, and to work it out so you don't lose a significant amount of money. I know it doesn't feel good. I mean, like romantically, we should not think that way, but that's a reality for a lot of people. But then my concern mostly, I mean, what people do with their finances is kind of their own business. But for me, it's mostly having worked with a lot of people's trauma, helping people with trauma. The trauma of divorce can be very real, and also real for those around you. If you have kids, even animals, sometimes that can be a lot. So, and then, even the financial cost of therapy to heal the trauma years later, so it's much better to kind of get this figured out as soon as possible so it doesn't spiral out. And then the world just needs more healthy examples of healthy couples. Like the world just needs that. Like there's not very many, people usually can't even think of like 3 healthy couples up close and personal. Don't want you to just feel like you have to settle for scraps in your relationship. You can take initiative, you take action, get intentional, and you can do it. You can create a healthy relationship dynamic with the right map here. And how to do that is not through more insight, not through more collage, not through more hodgepodge, just relationship advice. You need to actually do the repatterning part of it. So you need to have the map and then do the repatterning work that I show you how to do in the full course. And you do it together in relationship, which is awesome. Like having a relationship that's healing is next level, and you can create that if both people are willing. Both people have to be willing though, and it's not for abusive dynamics. But if both parties are willing and it's not in the extremes of like physical abuse, then I would do the course. It's for you. It'll help. Very much worth it, even if you just get a fraction of the value that's really there. So people stay stuck because they think they can just explain the pattern away and that'll be enough. That's not enough. Insight does not equal change. A lot of activation will outrun, it'll outperform thinking. So the kind of higher functioning parts of the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex, is not as important to your survival as these kind of fight or flight centers. So when the fight or flight is there, that will get activated. So just thinking your way through it's not enough. You actually have to work with the body, work with the physiology, and repattern it. And then you don't want those old protective sequences to take over. Healthy love can absolutely be trained. It's not just luck or chemistry. That's not enough. That's not going to work. You need learnable skills with the right map, and you need to move into repatterning into a secure functioning relationship. So even if your attachment system is not a secure attachment, you don't have that, and you're not going to soon, your relationship can still function as a securely attached relationship when you learn each other's maps and you learn how to take care of each other. It's called secure functioning, which is different than secure attachment. So you can have secure functioning without having secure attachment. It's very possible. The research is pretty clear that these things are possible, that it happens. It does happen. It happens all the time. So I really want you to know in yourself that you can move through this. If both of you are willing, you can create something that is truly special, that will change your life. And I mean, imagine going all together in a dynamic that's peaceful and nourishing and protective and secure, instead of the opposite, basically. Instead of being stuck, feeling that, all the time. You don't want that. So highly encourage you to check out this course that's launching soon. Maybe it'll be launched by the time you're watching this. If not, we'll have a wait list. So encourage you to sign up for that, and we'll do a good job there for you. So, okay, I'll see you soon.